Content creation can feel overwhelming. You know that you get to create content to put your message out into the world so that you can attract the people that you are called to serve. But do you find yourself sitting at the computer for hours, staring at a blank screen or a blank piece of paper, wondering, what should I create? What should I even be talking about? How do these people do this consistently? That is what one of my clients, Maddie, thought when she came to me. She would look at her phone, she would see these influencers and online business owners everywhere in all of their content, and she thought, what's the point? I can't even keep up. They seem like they're everywhere. They're posting everywhere. They're on YouTube, they're on TikTok, they're on Facebook. How can I even keep up? And another client, Tanya, came to me and said, I know I need to be creating content, but I don't even know where to start. Kristen, you said create it consistently in repurpose content, but how can I even repurpose something I'm not even creating or not creating consistently? These are struggles that we all face, and content marketing is important. You know this. So in this episode, I'm going to talk about a strategy that I teach that will make your content creation simple, and it will allow you to be consistent so that you can avoid the content overwhelm where we get analysis paralysis and then we create nothing. I'll also be talking about why social media doesn't cut it for creating content alone and why it is not a business growth plan and what you should do instead. What I'm going to be getting into today will be talked more in depth at the Called to the Business Battlefield event. If you have not yet saved your seat, grab the link in the show notes and get inside Called to the Business Battlefield for the Holy Spirit-led Woman Revolutionary. We start Monday, January 27th. Replays will be available if you're listening to this episode between the 27th and February 4th. But this is for the bold kingdom woman in online business who has an unapologetic message. You're a status quo challenger, and you're not going to bow down to the mainstream evil agenda that is so prevalent in this world today. My friend, it is time to have a profitable, impactful online business that wreaks havoc on the powers of darkness. I wholeheartedly believe that this is for such a time as this. Your business is for such a time as this. It's a business that wages war against the evils of this world and takes back territory that the enemy stole. Join us because during these 9 days, we're going to walk through a strategic battle plan for you to take ground in the business battlefield to finally have a profitable, impactful business by God's design without being a slave to social media, without compromising your faith and values, and without piecing it together with all the worldly tactics and those freebies filling up your inbox. So grab the link in the show notes and come join us. Welcome to the Kingdom Revolution Podcast, the online podcast for mamas against the mainstream agenda. We are redefining faith in online business to empower you, the Christian mama, to find and strengthen your roar, to clarify your calling so that you can create, grow, and launch a profitable, impactful, and scalable business by God's design without being a slave to social media and without sacrificing your faith and values. You know that you've been called to business and you want to do it God's way, not the world's way. A business that is based off the blueprint He put inside of you. A business by God's design, one that incorporates your testimony and inner fire to make a difference in this world. Like me, you don't mind going down a few rabbit holes, but you don't have to go down one to see that there is a war on future generations, a war on families, and a war against you, that kingdom warrior mama called to business, a war to silence your voice and movement. I believe your online business is your battlefield. It's how you get to show up and use that voice to create kingdom wealth and take back what the enemy has stolen. You have that inner fire to change your family's legacy, to take your passions, knowledge, life experiences, or even that hobby that you love and create an online business, bringing a heavenly solution down to an earthly problem. Maybe you have too many ideas. You're not even quite sure where to start. Or maybe you've been struggling for a few months, even years, duct taping it all together with worldly tactics and strategies that are just leaving you confused, overwhelmed, and questioning your calling. If that's you, you're in the right place. Hi, I'm your host, Kristen Duranci. I'm a wife, mama, ex-9-to-5er, and daughter of the King. I am a mama against the mainstream agenda who is using her voice and her online business to fight against the evils going on in today's world. I believe God is calling women back into position to a kingdom revolution, to the battlefield, to find and strengthen their voice, to stand firm for biblical truth, to be the change they want to see in this world. My mission battlefield? Restoring the family unit the way God intended, to bring mamas home so that they can be the one raising their warriors for the kingdom while making impact and income. So join me each week as I dive into honest conversations about my journey, tactical tips, spiritual and mindset strategies, along with the step-by-step plan to empower you to take that step of faith, to partner with God, to create, build, and launch an online business by His design without being a slave to social media. So if you're ready to say yes to all of this, you're not afraid to rock that status quo and be part of a kingdom revolution, then armor up with Ephesians 6 and put on the full armor of God, because you are a warrior for the kingdom, and He is going to use you and your online business to do some pretty amazing things here on this side of heaven. Hey, welcome back to the Kingdom Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Kristen Duranci. Thank you so much for being with me today. It is such a blessing to be able to come on here and share my message with you through this podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about content creation, because in the last couple mentoring and Q&A sessions inside the Business by God's Design Academy, some of my clients are asking, how can I consistently create content, and where does this content even come from? Well, I'm going to try to simplify it for you today, especially if you are one of those amazing kingdom-minded women who are asking, how do I consistently create content so I can be present in this online space so that I can attract those that I'm called to serve? And inside the Business by God's Design Academy, we talk about your messaging ecosystem. This is where you show up and you are creating content and providing value for your people to find you. There's a lot that goes into a messaging ecosystem. So if you think of what an ecosystem is, it's where your message, your content, your movement, the eternal impact you're creating on this side of heaven, it's where all of that lives, where your person you're called to serve, your ideal client, can find you. And they stay in that messaging ecosystem until they're ready to take that next step. Now, that's not what we're going to get into in this episode today. There's a lot to that. We'll be touching base a little bit on that at the Called to the Business Battlefield 9-day live event. So make sure you save your seat. But we really dive into that and create your messaging ecosystem, what that looks like inside our paid coaching containers. But today I'm going to be giving you some simple strategies on how you can start to create content consistently. And we're going to first talk about why creating content on social media alone isn't going to cut it. That is not where you're going to be creating content. I will link up some episodes in the show notes here on why social media is not a business growth plan and why it cannot be the core driver to email growth or business growth. There's lots of reasons why. You can probably already think of some, like the algorithms are consistently changing and only 1% of your followers see your posts. And if you're like me, when I had a Facebook page and Facebook personal profile that was quite old, it was a lot of friends and family members, and not a lot of them were my ideal client. So even if I was posting consistently with content on social media, chances are my ideal client or potential ideal client's not even seeing it anyways. Plus, you don't own your social media content. The platform policies could change and wipe out your hard work, which is what happened to me not that long ago. Last week, as of the recording of this episode, I'm still trying to work with or even find a link through Facebook Help where I can get my social media accounts back. I'll eventually be doing a podcast episode all around that, I'm sure. But the point is, you don't own social media. You could be hacked, or your personal profile, your business account, your Instagram can be shut down, which, like I just mentioned, happened to me. So every single thing that I posted, all my over 4,000 followers, 4,000 plus friends, and everything on my business account, my pixel, which was attached to my websites, everything was lost. So if I was using social media alone to rely on email growth, my business growth, and my revenue, I would be SOL right now. Sorry, you're out of luck. However, I know the importance of growing an email list and why social media alone can't be your main platform for audience growth, which is what I teach inside the Business by God's Design Academy. How to grow a profitable, impactful business by God's design without being a slave to social media, using kingdom collaboration strategies and organic growth, especially when you are just getting started in your online business. But these organic growth collaboration strategies can also be used to exponentially grow your email list and set up your next launch with high quality leads. And I do that through my smart lead gen method, which I also will be talking about at the Call to the Business Battlefield event. So make sure you save your seat. So to recap this quick part, social media is not the place where you need to be showing up and creating consistent content. It's a tool in your toolbox, and it is a place where you can show up and repurpose that content. But back to where we started in this episode, if you're not even creating content in the first place to repurpose, then we need to take a step back and know where you need to first start in order to have a content creation roadmap. Because if each week or each day you're trying to figure out what content to create and what to post, thinking social media is where you need to be posting it, or even if you do have a long form content platform, which we're going to talk about in a minute here, you may still be struggling. Okay, what do I talk about? What do I blog about? What do I YouTube about? This episode is going to help you. So let's start with the end in mind. I always love starting with the end in mind. Before you can have a profitable and impactful business by God's design, you have to know your signature offer, your signature method. That is your unique framework. You need to know how you help someone in simple terms. Too many times I think we get it wrong. I know I did it in the beginning. We look out and see what other people are doing, and we are viewing it from, I guess you could say, right to left. We see this content that has a call to action. We opt into it. We get an email with that PDF or that freebie download, and then we are taken through a process of, hey, this is what you needed. This is how I can help you. This is the what's next. Join my Facebook community, or join me at the next webinar or the next challenge or the next boot camp that I have. And then we join them. We are like, this is great. They make an offer and boom, there's their offer. And then we get to determine whether or not we want to be inside that paid container. So we see it and we experience it going right to left. And that's how, especially when we're getting started in the beginning stages of our business, that's how we start to create it from right to left without even knowing really with absolute specificity and clarity who our ideal client is and how we help them. That's why I said we have to start with the end in mind. And that's what we first do inside the Business by God's Design Academy, which the name's going to be changing on that. I should have mentioned that earlier in this episode. The name's going to be changing. So if you join me at the Call to the Business Battlefield event, you will find out what that new name is and what the new container is. And my clients who are listening inside the Business by God's Design Academy, don't worry, I got you. You're covered, no worries. But that's why we start with who you are by God's design. We extract that blueprint, and then we reverse engineer to what is that signature offer, signature method, your unique framework, the special way you solve problems for someone, right? We start with the end in mind. What is that one problem you can solve based off from your God-given genius zone, your unique abilities, whether you're a hero or a helper? A hero just means is that you have solved a problem and now you have set up a framework, or we can look back and see a unique framework and method that you took to solve your problem. And we can extract that and help someone else solve the same problem. Or you're a helper, meaning you have a skill, a God-given specialty, or you've learned something from your career that you can now take and you can help someone else learn. Both of them are going to solve one overarching umbrella specific problem for the person that you're called to serve. But the steps that you take and the content that you create are going to be a little bit different, whether you're a hero or a helper. Now, once again, we're not going to get into that. That's what we do inside the paid container. But the point I'm trying to make here is that no matter how you help someone solve a problem, you have to start with the end in mind and extract your signature method and that unique framework. It's basically a framework for how you deliver services and your expertise to your ideal client. And it is so important because having a signature method or framework is going to establish credibility. It's going to differentiate you from others in your field. And when you can name that signature method and the steps that you get someone from A to Z, it's going to elevate your authority. So for example, my signature method is the By God's Design framework on how to create, build, and scale a business that is by God's design without being a slave to social media. And I do that through a 5-part framework, or 5 steps, or 5 phases, or 5 milestones, however you want to think about that. You by God's design, because you can't have a business by God's design if you don't know who you are and your blueprint that gets to be extracted. So you by God's design, your business by God's design, offer by God's design, lead generation or growth by God's design, and then scale by God's design. And with each of those methods and those milestones that I take people through, I help them with the micro problems. And each of those micro problems could have a method or framework themselves. So for example, under growth by God's design, I have my SMART lead gen method that I teach. And that is a method of how you can grow your email list without being a slave to social media. Under the Business by God's Design, I have my movement-based marketing message that helps you create a message that creates a movement and a ripple effect on this side of heaven and is a part of your messaging ecosystem. So the umbrella problem that I help solve is I help kingdom-minded women create, build, and launch a business that's by God's design that allows them to have a profitable and impactful online business without being a slave to social media. And then each of those 5 steps, if you will, are a part of my signature method, the By God's Design framework. And each one of those steps or milestones are smaller micro problems that I help you solve. So when someone asks what I do, I can easily break it down into a few steps. Or better yet, even when I'm speaking on podcasts or giving presentations, I can use these steps so my audience can relate to what I do and how I do it. It also comes from a legal standpoint as well. And I go into this inside the Business by God's Design Academy because you're actually creating intellectual property for your business. It's your method, your expertise. And this is what makes you ungoogleable. It's what makes you uncopyable. It's what makes you relevant and AI obsolete. So the good news is it's not hard to create a signature framework or a signature method that you will become known for. And the reason that I'm talking about this, because this signature method and framework is the key to creating your content. We're not going to talk about how to create your signature method and your framework, but real quick, just to kind of give you a 30,000 foot view, is you have your ideal client who's in pain at A, and Z is after they've worked with you. Z is after they solve the problem. You, my friend, are the B to Y. Your signature method and framework is the B to Y, and that should be anywhere between 3 to 5 pillars, 3 to 5 milestones. Anything over that is just too much. If you have more than 5 milestones and steps that you take them through, that's way too much to talk about. It's going to overwhelm them, confuse them, and everything in between. And chances are, like I tell my clients, is that maybe this needs to be broken down into a smaller program where the next steps take them into more access to you or a different program. I have no idea without working with you and helping you create and define your signature framework, your B to Y, but no more than 5 milestones, because you want something simple that you can talk about when someone asks you what you do. And this is where your content creation comes from, your signature method. So right now you can ask yourself, what is your B to Y? What are those 3 to 5 steps that will take someone from A to Z, that will help your ideal client solve the problem? Now, yes, you need to have clarity on who your ideal client is first and foremost as well, because when you're creating content, you need to be speaking specifically to that person, not just speaking to busy moms. Okay, well, what does busy mean? Is she a busy mom because she has 3 toddlers and she's running around like a chicken with her head cut off because they're throwing their vegetables all over the place? So you help busy moms with toddlers actually eat their vegetables? Or does busy moms mean that she's a stay-at-home mom, that she homeschools and she owns an online business as well, but you help her get organized? So we want to be very specific on who our ideal client is so our content can be speaking directly to them. But it first starts with that signature method, because once you have those steps, those become your content pillars. All right. And then once you have those steps, so for example, you by God's design, your business by God's design, offer, then lead generation or growth by God's design. So those are like the first 4 steps that I take someone through. So for example, you by God's design, that's my first pillar, my first framework. Content under that is how to extract your blueprint. Stop looking to the outside world and what everyone else is doing. You already have that idea, that blueprint, that God-given genius zone inside of you, how to extract that. Another part of you by God's design is, what does God want you to do on this side of heaven? Content that I've created is why your personal why just doesn't cut it as a Christian entrepreneur, because God has so much more in store for your business. And your business isn't about you. It's about that eternal ripple effect that you're creating. Another piece of content I could create under you by God's design is how to craft a movement-based marketing message, a message that lights that fire inside of your ideal client and creates a movement on this side of heaven. What does a movement do? And, content that gets into all of that. Under growth by God's design, I could talk about my smart lead gen method, how to create content that attracts your ideal client without being a slave to social media. Right now, what I'm doing, creating content. using your signature method. That would fall under your business by God's design. So once you have your method and named it, you have your content pillars and you can extract content out of that. So when you're ready to create that content, you pick a step, pick a pillar, and then extract something underneath it on what you talk about and how you help people and create content around that. That creates authority for you, your business, and your signature method. All right, so you start with your signature framework. You create a signature method, you name that framework, and then eventually in between or below those milestones, you may or may not have additional methods and additional frameworks, which are your intellectual property. That will come as you keep moving forward. I did not have intellectual property like the smart lead gen method, the movement-based marketing message when I first started. Those will come. But if you can put a name to them right now, something that kind of makes sense because you can dig in to see your process and how you help people, put a name to it. Because once again, that's going to elevate your authority status and it's going to make you ungoogleable. It's going to elevate what you do and you are going to appear and look like you are an expert in what you do because you are. And I'm sure you can think of a lot of people that has a signature method, a signature framework, like Marie Forleo, the B School. Melissa Rickard, Engineered to Scale. Those are a few that just off the top of my head I can think of. But I'm sure as you're listening to this, you can think of some entrepreneurs that you follow that have a signature method and framework. All right, so the next step. Great, Kristen. The signature method, my framework, is where I can extract content from and create content around using my ideal clients' pain points, their struggles, and this is how I can help you. Wonderful. Now, where do you show up with that content? I teach inside the Business by God's Design Academy to have one pillar piece of content. You show up there, you maximize that pillar piece of content, and then you repurpose it. That pillar piece of content should be a long form content platform. Why? Because it lives on forever. Unlike social media, when you make a post in 10 seconds, it's gone. So what are some of those long form content platforms if you're unfamiliar with that? They're SEO strategies, meaning that they're search engine optimization. So they're YouTubes, they're blogging, and they're podcasting. Those are the 3 long form content platforms that I highly recommend to my clients that they pick one. Now, they don't have to do everything in the beginning stages of your business. So if you're just getting started, I highly recommend that you don't try to do all of the things. First, you need to have clarity on who your ideal client is, offer clarity, and clarity, you by God's design, because we get to bring you into your business, okay? Your people resonate with you. Gone are the days where you can just be good at what you do. Now people are buying from people that, yes, people that they know, like, and trust, but people that they want to have a long-term relationship with. It's more of relationship-based marketing in 2025 and beyond more than ever. So we have to dig deep in that blueprint and who God created you to be and bring in your core values, bring in your movement, bring in your eternal impact that God wants to do in you and through you. But once we have clarity on all of that and you have launched and you are in your beta founding member program, you're making income as you are creating and building out your program, which I teach you in the beta launch method inside the academy. Once you've done that, then we take a step back and figure out what is that long form piece of content that you're going to be creating and showing up consistently and using? Is it podcasting? Is it blogging? Is it going to be YouTube? And then you can repurpose it to social media, repurpose it to Reels, repurpose it to TikTok. If that still even exists at this time, I don't know. Once again, why you can't rely on social media as an email or business growth strategy. All right. Now, What if you're thinking, well, Kristen, I'm just getting started. I have clarity, or maybe I have some clarity. I don't want to create a podcast right now. I don't want to start blogging or YouTubing. I understand that's important because it is an SEO strategy. It's where people can go search, they find you. When they're searching for specific things, you're going to start showing up because these long form content platforms used as pillar content platforms, your content, how many times can we say content in an episode, will live on. It becomes searchable. So how do you start to create content that you can use eventually on these long form content platforms now, especially when you're first getting started? Well, step one, define what your signature method is, how you get someone help. What are those 3 to 5 pillars? And then come up with and brainstorm content underneath those 3 to 5 pillars of your ideal client's pain points. What are they struggling with? What did you struggle with? What helped you? And start to create content based off that. Step 2, know who your ideal client is and have some clarity around that. And then start to create content by either writing it down on a piece of paper, either record on Zoom and talking out that piece of content, transcribing it, throwing it into ChatGPT, and have it help come up with creative content or ideas, or formulate it in a way that makes sense, because as you're talking, maybe you're just riffing all over the place, which is totally fine. I've definitely done that. I've had ideas, wanted to talk about creating content. I put Zoom on, I record myself talking through it, and then I take that transcript, throw it into ChatGPT, and say, organize this for me. And then I organize it myself after that and create it into a podcast episode using my words. Now, that's something that you can do for blogs or anything else. But the point is, just start. Figure out a way that you like to show up and create content, whether it's writing or recording yourself. Put together your content and then start to share it. So if you like showing up on video, create a video or go live on social media after you have your piece of content created. If you don't want to do that, then start to write it out and make a post of it and put a blog up somewhere. You can create blogs on your website. You can Google how to start a blog. There's different platforms out there. The one that's very popular right now escapes me at this time. The name of it starts with an S. I can't think of what it's called. But you can start these things relatively simple and just get started. My recommendation for you is, once you have your signature method, clarity on that, who your ideal client is, just start to brainstorm different content ideas and then pick one. That's the next step I teach my clients. You have one pillar content for 1 week or bi-weekly. Pick how many times you're going to create this one pillar piece of content. It's a larger piece of content. If you're blogging, it's between 1,000 and 5,000 words. If you're creating a podcast, it's going to be, anywhere from 10 minutes to a half hour. I like to keep things short and sweet. If you're doing a video, short and sweet, whatever it is, just create your long form piece of content, and then you extract bits and pieces out of it to repurpose, and you point them back to that pillar piece of content. So an example for me, I would have a podcast episode talking about how social media can not be the core driver for your email growth or your business growth strategy. I would weave in my smart lead gen method. I would give you tips and strategies on how to not be a slave to social media in your online business. That podcast episode, if I remember, I will link it up here. But then I extracted bite-sized pieces for that to have on social media, quotes, tips from that. I could also create, if I wanted to, infographics or visuals that I could share in social media or on my email list. The possibilities are endless. But the main goal is to have one piece of pillar content, either weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly, and then you extract things from that and tips and resources as your additional content to repurpose on social media, on your email list. And you always want to have a call to action. The call to action will either drive them to that long form piece of content so they can read the blog in entirety, or they can listen to the podcast, or they can listen to the YouTube, or maybe you did a video in your Facebook community. You're still going to repurpose that content elsewhere and link, hey, join this community to listen to the rest of the video. You're going to send it out on your email list, but you're always going to have a call to action that drives them back to that pillar piece of content or gets them on your email list as a freebie opt-in, as a free resource, as a guide. So if you don't have a long form piece of content to drive them to, you can say, hey, grab my 3-part checklist on XYZ, what I just talked about here, that'll go into more greater detail. That's going to grow your email list. Your call to actions really are going to depend on what you're doing and what action you want them to take. So you can start creating your long form content now. Write it out or record yourself talking through it and transcribe it and start to save them, because when you are finally in a position to decide whether or not you want to have a podcast, a blog, or a YouTube channel, you already have that content created that you can actually reuse and repurpose and actually create that content on your long form content platform that you choose. Now, when you choose one of those, it is based off from who you are and who God created you to be, but also it's based off from where does your ideal client need you and want you to be showing up, and where do they go to look for solutions for that problem that they have. An example that I give is maybe that you are a cake decorator and you teach your ideal clients how to decorate a cake. Well, starting a podcast probably isn't going to be the best first thing for your long form content platform, especially if they need to visually see you. You're probably going to want to start a YouTube channel where they can see you giving them their tips and how they create roses on a cake, right? Or how they do this specific graphic font on decoration on a cake. That is going to be more beneficial for your ideal client than a podcast if you are a cake decorator. Not to say that you can eventually have a podcast if that's what you choose to do, but stick with one that makes sense for you and your ideal client, and then you can branch out afterwards. All right, I pray that this blessed you today. Get creating content, your action plan, define your signature method, map that out, and create those content pieces under each of those pillar methods. So let's say you have 4 methods in your signature framework, 4 milestones, 4 pillars. And underneath of those, you have 10 different topic ideas. That's 40 pieces of long form content. That's a lot of content that you can start to create. Create one and then figure out how you're going to repurpose that across the content platforms that you choose to be on. All right. And I'm going to link up some other episodes here as well in the show notes of what you can do to not be a slave to social media and what social media actually is as a tool in your toolbox. All right. Have an amazing, blessed day.
That's it for today, friends. Real quick before you go, if this podcast has blessed you in some way, the number one way that you can thank me is to leave a written review over on Apple Podcasts. The second thing you can do is take a screenshot of this episode or that review and tag me over on social media in your stories at Kristen Duranci. And then I will share you in my stories and give you a shout out. This not only blesses me, but you are creating a ripple effect by getting this message into the hands of others that might need to hear it. And know that there's only one you. Someone is out there waiting to hear from you. They're waiting for your message, your story, and your solution to their problem. You are the expert they're waiting to hear from. I want you to know this, feel this, and most importantly, be this. Never underestimate the impact and power that you have been given through the Holy Spirit. Be blessed, friend, and I'll see you on the next episode.